crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Got a really interesting panel of guests to deal with a topic that is really interesting. Before we get going, some ground rules of how you can join our conversation, because the show is always better the more you are involved. Ways to do that at the bottom of your screen. Also, 844-LAW-TALK is the number to know, and just kind of to keep that number. That's the way you can get Hollis Wright anytime, 844-LAW-TALK. A neat thing that Hollis Wright makes available each and every time that we're on the air here for the attorneys is that attorneys from Hollis Wright are standing by live. That's a free, off-air, confidential conversation, a great opportunity that is yours for the taking. Again, that's going to be available to you all throughout the program tonight. Leading tonight's conversation is Carter Clay from Hollis Wright. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I hope you're doing well.
Doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, so we've covered a lot of topics on these shows, and one topic we oftentimes cover deals with automobile insurance coverage that people would have for their automobiles. We're not going to talk about that type of insurance tonight because we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about other types of insurance that people will have in their everyday lives. And I don't care who you are out there, whether you're a high net worth individual, low net worth, low, middle, or high income, insurance is going to impact your life to some extent. So every viewer out there should pay attention to this show because it will influence or impact their lives at some point in time. And this is a very good topic to cover. And I'm so thankful that we have my good friend Inge Johnstone here with us this evening to kind of tackle this issue and talk about these topics. Inge, thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Carter, it's a pleasure. I'm glad to be on. And David, good to see you too.
Good to see you.
To tell us a little bit about your background and yourself and how you got involved in handling insurance claims. And when I talk about insurance claims, what we're primarily going to be talking about tonight are situations where an individual or perhaps a business has a dispute or some issue directly with an insurance company, like maybe it involves homeowners insurance, health insurance, insurance that is covering their business. But talk a little bit about how you got involved in this legal practice area.
Yeah, absolutely, Carter. So our firm does things like represents folks with car wrecks and business disputes, but one thing that I do a lot of is representing people against insurance companies or people that have insurance problems. And when I was a young lawyer, I had the good fortune to represent a client who was in the worst time of her life, and her husband had passed away. And she was still grieving for her husband, and she had counted on this safety net. And the insurance was her safety net. And I was able to help her through that tough situation and then help her get a recovery with her insurance. And it's so meaningful for me to be able to deal with a person who's already in that rough spot and they've been counting on this safety net to be there for them. They've been paying those premiums for years and years and years, and then I get to somehow help them make that better, and that's very rewarding. So we do a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, as you know, when we talk about insurance, there are policies of insurance that go along with the coverage that is being provided. And there are lawyers like you and me, corporate lawyers, that sit there and they draft these policies. And these policies are very complicated, they're very complex. Oftentimes, they're very difficult to understand and interpret. And I know as a lawyer and as a consumer, somebody who has insurance myself for various different reasons, we'd like to think that the insurance companies are going to do the right thing and always make the right decisions. But as you know, oftentimes they don't make good decisions. Sometimes they're engaged in what we call bad faith towards their insured. They're totally misconstruing or misinterpreting these insurance provisions and denying claims. And sometimes it just evolves into a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of policy language. But is that typically what you find in your practice, where a person comes and gets you involved because they've had some dispute over the policy language itself?
It could be the policy language itself, Carter, or it could be something like the investigation's taking a really long time, or they're asking me for more and more information. And I've already given them my tax returns, I've given them my bank statements, and yet they still want more. It can be that sort of thing. And it can be the sort of thing where the insurance company is just saying some things that don't add up. I mean, I had a health insurance claim once where my lady kept getting these explanation of benefits forms saying that the insurance company had not received medical records and was denying the claim. And she received those forms over and over and over again for months and months and months. And in reality, the insurance company had the records. So it can be that sort of situation too.
Well, I think the first topic or area within the insurance realm that we wanted to cover tonight was homeowners insurance. And I think generally everybody out there would understand what homeowners insurance is and why you would have to have homeowners insurance. But one unique thing about homeowners insurance is that typically speaking, I don't know what the percentages are, but probably 98, 99% of the population, they have a mortgage on the house. And so am I correct that anytime you're going to have a mortgage, that mortgage company who you're having to pay on a monthly basis, they are going to make certain that that house is covered with some type of homeowner's insurance?
Absolutely. The bank will have as a requirement that you cover insurance, and oftentimes if you don't, then they will force place insurance on it to protect their loan.
Okay. And here in Alabama, of course, we go through periods of time where we have tornado season and tornadoes come through. But what types of claims as a lawyer are you involved in terms of helping homeowners file a homeowner's insurance claim, or maybe even getting into litigation that involves that type of claim?
The most common claims in Alabama are wind claims, obviously with the tornadoes and the storms, hail damage claims, and water claims. And by water claims, what we're talking about are things like you have a pipe burst inside the house, or you have a toilet overflow. And while that seems like an insignificant thing, when that happens in a house, it can do all sorts of damage because you have to remediate and remove all the contaminants and things like that. So it can get very expensive. Those are the most common types of things, but the most severe types of claims that we see generally deal with things like fires.
Yeah.
And so when you have a fire, you're always going to have the smoke damage, which is expensive, but they're the obvious things with major structural damage once the fire really gets out of control, and that really can really devastate folks.
Yeah.
All right, time for us to take our first break of the evening, dealing with homeowners insurance. They're going to get into health insurance as well. All about insurance on tonight's show, the ins and outs of insurance and what you need to know. We'd love to have you join our conversation. As we head to break, a reminder, a great resource of really good and helpful information and kind of to educate you on some legal matters and keep you up to date on what's going on is social media and the way Hollis Wright uses it. So check them out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also their YouTube page as well. So wherever you are on social media, Hollis Wright is there as well. So be sure and check them out. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
If you sustain an on-the-job injury, it can devastate you and your family. That's when you need the help of Hollis Wright. Our attorneys are right here in Birmingham and have decades of experience representing injured victims. We have handled on-the-job injury cases in every county throughout this great state and would be proud to help you. If you've been injured in an accident, always make Hollis Wright the first law firm you call. At Hollis Wright, results matter.
I started practicing law more than 20 years ago with a mission: advocate for personal injury victims in their darkest days. Recognizing that there were others who stood with me in that purpose, we built the Hollis Wright team from the ground up. Now with 25 employees here to help personal injury victims when they need it the most, our team is here for you. If you've been injured in an accident, always make Hollis Wright the first law firm you call. At Hollis Wright, results matter.
Welcome back into the attorneys. Appreciate you being with us tonight. We're going to get right back to our conversation, but real quickly, the numbers that you need to know if you want to get in touch with us. 844-LAW-TALK, that number 844-529-8255, or locally here in the Birmingham area, 205-324-3600. Carter?
Yeah, Inge, when we took a break, we were talking about homeowners insurance, and what I'd like to talk about now is what specifically or typically is going to be covered under a homeowner's insurance policy. I think sometimes we can kind of take that for granted. Obviously, I think the physical structure of the home is covered, but I think homeowners insurance could involve much more than that. Is that true?
It can, Carter, and I want to talk about some of those things as well as a couple things for policyholders to watch out for.
Okay.
So the major things are things that we know about, like fire and lightning and things like hail damage. We've talked about some of those risks, and you talked about the home itself or the dwelling coverage. We would call that the dwelling coverage, and that protects the building structure. Your homeowner's insurance will also cover typically your personal property, and this is something when you're buying insurance, you want to make sure that's covered. And also an important thing to think about is when you're replacing that, do you want to get money enough to buy it new? Do you want replacement cost coverage? Because there's a big difference between that and something called actual cash value. And actual cash value will not get you enough money to replace everything. It will also, we've talked about the personal property. It also might cover other structures on the property. And a big part of it is covering liability. And what that means is, say someone is injured on your property. If someone is injured on your property, then your policy will have liability coverage usually that will enable you to report your claim to the insurance company. And if it's the type of thing that's covered by the insurance, then the insurance company will pay for a lawyer and ultimately will pay any settlement up to the amount of the coverage.
And one thing that I understand is not all personal property within the house is necessarily generally covered by the homeowner's insurance coverage. Like for instance, on my homeowner's policy, there's actually what they call special articles coverage, where if somebody's got an expensive wedding ring or a valuable or something like that, there's an additional, premium payment or coverage for those types of things. Is that correct?
It is, Carter, and I'm glad you brought that up because there are a lot of limits for things like collectibles and jewelry. And so if you do have things like expensive jewelry, you do need to bring those up with your broker or agent and specifically get those things covered for their value. Otherwise, you might be facing a really low limit and find yourself not being able to replace those things.
Yeah. Now, in terms of documentation and record keeping, what advice or tips would you give the viewers in terms of things that they should do, not when they have an insurance claim, but before anything arises, to make sure that they've got everything documented well so that if they have a claim, they can provide it in a nice, neat, organized format to the insurance company?
The best thing to do, or the easiest thing to do, I should say, is periodically walk around your house with your phone or video camera and make sure that you're getting all of your, the house itself as well as your major items, all your electronics, go through your closets, your big ticket furniture items, and then even take pictures of inside of the house and outside of the house. Do those things and put that somewhere that it can be stored electronically. Like if you have an iPhone, do it on the iCloud. If you have an Android phone, do it on Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever. The type of thing that won't burn up in case you have a fire, or that won't blow away in case a tornado hits your home.
And I guess ideally, if you've got receipts, purchase orders, things like that for some of the major items in your home, if you have a filing cabinet file, you can put those items in there as well.
That's absolutely right. Do those, and also store big receipts electronically, so that if you have that lost and maybe you don't have a fireproof safe, that you can access those things. And whenever you have that big purchase, that big electronics purchase, just kind of think, well, maybe I should create a folder for that in my email, or maybe I should save that somewhere just in case something happens in the future.
Now, let's shift into an event happens, whether it be a fire, tornado, something happens where your home is damaged, you have a loss of the dwelling structure itself, and you also have loss of contents or personal property. What are some of the top 3 or top 5 immediate steps that you would recommend that somebody take following a loss?
Well, after you've taken care of yourself and your family, then you're naturally going to report the claim to your insurance company, and they're going to send you documents like a proof of loss form. You're going to want to begin taking pictures and getting all of your evidence of all the damage that you suffered. That's going to be very important. You're also, if it's the kind of thing that's ongoing, say you've had water damage somehow, like your toilet's backed up, you're going to want to call a remediation company to come in and stop further damage from occurring. And then you just want to make sure that you cooperate with the insurance company and gather the documents that they ask you to put together.
And now in terms of calling in a remediation company, like let's say for instance ServPro is out there, they'll come in and do a remediation, kind of control the damage to make sure it doesn't get any worse. I guess does the homeowner just have to pay that out of pocket and maybe keep track of what they paid and ask for reimbursement later?
It depends. A lot of times the insurance company will go ahead and cover that. And if they don't, though, then the homeowner does need to do it. It's not necessarily a good excuse unless there is no way you can pay for it, to say, well, I was waiting around on you guys to pay for it. The homeowner's going to need to take reasonable actions to go ahead and protect the house and their stuff from further damage. A lot of times the insurance company will cover it if it's clearly a covered loss, though.
Okay. All right. Time to step aside here. Just one more segment remaining in tonight's show. So just a few minutes remaining if you want to take advantage of that opportunity to speak with attorneys from Hollis, Wright, who are standing by live. Stay tuned. We got more of the attorneys coming right up. Stay with us.
I'm Drew McNutt with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. We often get asked what happens if someone is injured by a motorist who doesn't have any insurance coverage. In tonight's Legal 411, we will address uninsured motorist coverage. Under Alabama law, all automobile policies issued must provide uninsured motorist coverage unless the name insured rejects the coverage in writing. If you purchase this coverage and you are injured by an uninsured driver, you can make a claim against your own insurance company to compensate you for the injuries caused by an uninsured or underinsured driver. While liability insurance is required by state law, it is estimated that over 20% of the motorists in Alabama do not have any coverage at all. Uninsured motorist coverage provides you with the ability to protect yourself and your family in the event you are injured or killed by one of these uninsured drivers. If you are concerned about whether you're covered, I recommend that you check your declarations page or contact your insurance agent to discuss your coverage options. If you do not have uninsured motorist coverage, consider adding it. And if you do have it, discuss increasing your limits. Oftentimes, you can purchase hundreds of thousands in coverage for less than $100 a year. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on the real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into the attorneys. About 8 minutes remaining in the program tonight, so the clock is ticking. 844-LAW TALK, 205-324-3600 locally if you'd like to speak with those attorneys from Hollis Wright who are standing by live. Now, you two are experts and have dealt with...
Well, I don't know about that.
No, I know. I know. You guys are. You all are the experts. You've dealt with insurance agents and companies hundreds, if not thousands of times. Tell me if the layperson is incorrect in that it almost appears as though, despite the policy and what you paid and the coverage and all of that, that the insurance companies, there's this perception a lot of times that they really are trying to get out of paying rather than jumping to help. In you all's experience, is that the case? Is that accurate?
Well, I'll jump in first, and then Inge, you can kind of supplement my answer as well. I would say that in my experience, it is insurance company dependent and it is claims representative dependent. What I mean by that is I have found that some insurance companies are better than others at paying claims and being more reasonable than other insurance companies. And I think the same can be said even within an insurance company, depending upon who the claims representatives are that you're dealing with. Some claims representatives are better than others. And I think generally speaking, you'd like to think that they want to do the right thing, but we have to look at it from their perspective as well. They're trying to defeat fraudulent claims. Okay. They're very concerned about people making fraudulent claims, so they want to do their due diligence to document the claims that are being made, make sure that they are legitimate. But at the end of the day, yes, you are correct that they are going to be in the business of paying the least amount of money out to the insured to get the claim resolved.
Carter, I think you're spot on. There are plenty of good folks that are in the insurance industry. It's awfully important, but you do see them do the wrong thing, and a lot of times it's because they have some economic incentives to do that.
And that's a great question to kind of segue into this next question that I wanted to cover with you, is because just about any insurance policy that the viewer or an insured has with their insurance company has what we call an examination under oath requirement, where the insurance representative can ask the insured or the person making the claim, hey, we want to ask you some questions under oath about the nature of your claim and the damages of your claim. Talk a little bit about that and why the insured or the viewer would have to be very careful about giving an examination under oath without an attorney present.
Sure. So I see examinations under oath a lot, and I think it seems like I see them more and more here lately. But an examination under oath is when the insurance company hires its lawyer to ask the insured questions and produce documents to the insurance company. Now, the insurance policy gives the insurance company a right to do this, and so if they ask to do it, then you as an insured need to comply with that request and do your best to gather the documents together, do your best to schedule a time when you can do it. You do have the right to pick a convenient time for you. You don't have to do it whenever you receive your first letter and there's a time and a date put on there. You can say to the attorneys, can we pick another date? I'm at work today, or I have to pick up my kids at this time, and they should work with you. And the other thing is that with these types of things, you have the right to have an attorney present if you want. Now, if you don't have an attorney, though, it's okay. A lot of times these things do take place without attorneys, but if you do that, it's very important that you tell the complete truth, that you're direct, and that you're careful about what you say. And by being careful, what I mean is that you treat it like a serious matter and you don't guess about stuff, you don't speculate about things, that you make sure you answer the questions in a very serious, thoughtful way, so that the lawyers that are taking the examinations don't get the wrong impression and think that you're trying to hide something or think that you got something wrong.
Yeah. Question we've got here, what do I do if my health insurance company denies my claim for medical care?
The first thing to do is try to get a copy of your policy, or sometimes if you have a group policy through your employer, you're really going to be looking for a summary of benefits. Get that so that you can be aware of the types of things that are covered, what's not covered, your deductibles, your copays, and then very importantly, what the time limits are to either submit your claim in the first place or to appeal a denial of your claim.
Talk a little bit about, because I know you wanted to touch upon this, and I'd never heard about these health insurance policies, but they're called something along they're short-term health insurance policies. What are those, and how are they different from a normal health insurance policy?
Well, Carter and David, I think the short-term policies are a big problem right now, and it's because these policies are being marketed like crazy over the internet, and there are hundreds of these lead-generating websites that advertise major medical coverage, and then they'll have the names of insurance companies that you've heard of on those websites. But what those websites are doing is they are just getting your contact information so that it could be sent to a call center that's going to then call you, and they're going to take you through a call script. A lot of times the products that are being sold on these are called short-term healthcare policies. And people run into trouble with them because they think they're getting major medical coverage, and they think they're getting the protections offered by the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, but they're not. And so what that means is their care could be excluded by pre-existing conditions. They may not get maternity care, they may not get mental health care, and they also may have big limits.
Yeah. Believe it or not, we're just about out of time here. I want to give you both time for a final thought, and Angie, if you would, you go first, please.
Thanks, David. I think if you're with the short-term policies, just be careful and make sure, before you commit to anything, read all of the language, and you might just be better off going through healthcare.gov, or if your employer has a policy, trying to get a group policy that way.
And just real quickly, is the attractiveness of these short-term policies, are they marketing them as cheaper alternatives?
They are, but the funny thing is by the time some of the call center folks get through with the people I've talked to, the premiums can add up, but people are still left holding the bag on tens of thousands of dollars of medical care at the end of the day.
David, I think documentation and communication are the key for those homeowners' policies and claims. Make sure you got good documentation, photographs, and receipts will go a long way if you have that type of claim.
Really helpful stuff tonight, gentlemen. Thank you, Ange. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Carter, thanks so much. We appreciate you being with us, and as always, we really also appreciate you being with us each and every night. Thanks so much for your time. As we wrap things up, don't forget to check out Hollis Wright all over social media. Just search Hollis Wright. You can also give them a call. That number, 844-LAW-TALK, 844-529-8255. You're going to want to just kind of take a note of that and hang on to that one. Again, 844-LAW-TALK, the number to know to get in touch with the lawyers at Hollis Wright. Thanks so much for the time. We'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.